I was half asleep on the couch when the phone rang. For a second, I thought it was part of a dream. The room was dark. The TV screen was black. The only sound was the soft hum of the fridge. Then the phone rang again, sharper, louder. I glanced at the clock on the cable box. 12 a.m. Exactly midnight. My first thought was my mother. She lives alone on the other side of town. Every late-night call feels like bad news. I grabbed my phone from the coffee table. The screen lit up my face. Unknown number. For a moment, I almost let it ring out. I had work in the morning. I was tired. But something about that time midnight, on a Tuesday, made my thumb move. I swiped to answer. Hello? My voice sounded thick and tired. There was a pause on the other end. Not static. Not background noise. Just hesitation. Is this Daniel? A woman asked. Her voice was soft. Careful. Like she was stepping onto thin ice. Yes, I said slowly. Who's this? Another small pause. I heard something faint in the background, maybe a TV, maybe an old line buzzing. My name is Claire, she said. We've never met. I'm sorry for calling so late. People don't apologize for late calls when it's good news. My chest tightened. Is something wrong? I asked. Yes, she said quietly. Something is very wrong, and I think you deserve to know the truth. I sat up on the couch. The room suddenly felt colder. The TV screen was just a dark mirror in front of me. Know what? I asked. It's about your father, she said. For a moment, everything inside me stopped. My father? I repeated. You must have the wrong number. No, she said. A little firmer now. You're Daniel Wright. Your father's name is Michael Wright. He died 22 years ago in a car accident. You were 9 years old. I felt a chill crawl up the back of my neck. This woman was a stranger. I had never heard her voice before, and yet she had just summed up the worst night of my life in 3 flat sentences. Memories I usually keep buried, pushed to the surface. My mother sitting at the kitchen table, her face swollen from crying. A police officer's hat resting on our counter. My mother's voice breaking as she said, Daddy isn't coming home. How do you know that? I asked. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Because, she said, I was there that night. At the hospital. I drew in a slow breath. You were where? At the hospital. She repeated. I worked there back then. I was on shift when they brought your father in. And I was there when things stopped making sense. The living room suddenly felt too small. I looked around as if someone else might be standing there with me, but it was just me. A dim lamp and a cold coffee mug on the table. Listen, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. My father is dead. We had a funeral. We buried him. This is not funny. It's not a joke. She cut in. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge under it. I would never call someone at midnight for a joke. We both went quiet. I could hear her breathing. She could probably hear mine. I know what you were told, she said softly. I know what your mother believes. I know what his death certificate says. My heart skipped. How do you know about that? I asked. Because I've seen it, she replied. More than once. I kept a copy of the file from that night. I shouldn't have, but I did. And after what happened last Tuesday, I can't stay quiet anymore. It's so. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. The tiles were cold under my feet. I didn't turn on the light. This conversation felt like it belonged in the dark. I'm listening, I said. Your father didn't die the way they told you, she said. He didn't die in that hospital bed. It felt like someone had unplugged me from the inside. That's impossible, I said automatically. They told us his injuries were too severe. The crash was terrible. People don't just survive that. His injuries were serious, she said. But he was still alive when they signed the papers. He was moved, off record, transferred under another name. Those words did not belong in my father's story. Off record. Another name. Transferred. And you know this because? I asked. Because I was the one who wheeled him out of ICU, she said. I watched two men in suits sign for him like he was a package. They took him down a hallway we never used for patients. And then I was told to forget I'd ever seen him. My hand gripped the edge of the counter. My knuckles went white. Why would anyone do that? I whispered. I don't know every reason, she said. Even now, I just know what I saw, and I know what it cost me. Her voice dropped. I was transferred, she said, then fired. Someone came to my apartment. They made it very clear that if I talked about Michael Wright, my career, and maybe more than that, was over. I closed my eyes. It felt like the floor wasn't steady anymore. So, why now? I asked. Why call me after 22 years? I heard paper rustle on her end. When she spoke again, her voice sounded restless. Because last Tuesday, she said, he walked into the clinic where I work now. I thought I'd misheard her. He what? He walked in, she repeated. Older. Thinner. But it's him. He used another name. But I recognized his face. His voice. The scar on his chin. The way he grips his left shoulder when he sits down. It's him, Daniel. I'm sure of it. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. You're telling me, I said slowly, that my father, who died 22 years ago, just walked into your clinic last week? I'm telling you I saw a man I know is your father, she said. He looked like someone who has been running for a long time. I wanted to say you're crazy. The words almost came out, but they caught on something. Because under the shock, under the anger, under all the years, something else moved. Hope. Why should I believe you? I asked. You're a stranger. You're calling from an unknown number. It's midnight. I know, she said. That's why I didn't just call to talk. There was a small scrape on her end of the line, like she was shifting a bag or folder. I knew you wouldn't believe me right away, she said. That's why I brought proof. Proof? Yes, she said. I'm outside your building. I froze. What? I'm in the parking lot, she said calmly, in a silver sedan. I've been sitting here for 10 minutes, trying to decide whether to make this call. I have the files from that night, and something else you need to see. I walked back toward the living room window. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. You're joking, I said. I'm not, she replied. If you move the curtain, you'll see my car. I reached for the curtain. My hand was shaking. If she was lying, I was about to drag a stranger into my life for nothing. If she was telling the truth, then everything I believed about my father's death might be a lie. Claire, I said, my throat dry, what exactly are you going to show me? There was a brief silence. Everything they never wanted you to know, she said. I didn't move the curtain right away. My fingers were on the fabric, but my mind had gone somewhere else. Back 22 years. Back to the night my childhood ended. People say you remember the big moments of your life in perfect detail. I don't. For me, that night is just flashes of sound and color and feeling. I remember the rain first. It was loud against the windows. I was sitting on the floor in front of the TV, watching some cartoon I don't even remember now. My father had promised to be home by 7. It was after 9. Is Dad working late again? I'd asked. My mother didn't answer right away. She was in the kitchen, rinsing out a mug. The way she was staring at the sink made me feel something was wrong. Even then, he probably got stuck in traffic. She said finally, Finish your show? Okay? Her voice was too bright, too careful. At 9:30 she called his phone. I remember the way her jaw tightened when it went straight to voicemail. At 10, she tried again. Still nothing. At 10:15 someone knocked on the door. I don't remember the knock itself. I remember my mother's face when she heard it. All the color drained out of her. She wiped her hands on a towel 3 times before she walked to the door. There were 2 men standing there, one in uniform, one in a suit. I'd seen that combination in movies. I didn't understand what it meant in real life yet. The officer took off his hat when he stepped inside. I remember that detail so clearly. It feels like it happened yesterday. He held it in both hands, like it was something fragile. "Mrs. Wright?" he asked. My mother nodded. Her fingers were twisting the dish towel. "I don't remember every word he said. Just pieces. Accident. Highway. Drunk driver. Impact. Didn't suffer." I remember my mother making a sound I had never heard from a human throat before. Half scream, half sob. Her knees buckled, and the man in the suit reached out to catch her. Someone told me to go to my room. I didn't. I stood in the hallway, listening. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. At some point, I ended up on the kitchen floor, curled up with my back against the cabinets. The officer walked past me once. He tried to smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "Do you have any family nearby?" he asked my mother. "My parents are gone," she said. "His brother lives out of town. I'll call him in the morning." Her voice sounded older, like something inside it had cracked. We didn't go to the hospital that night. I asked if we could see Dad. My mother shook her head. "They said, 'It's better if we remember him how he was,'" she said. I didn't understand. I just knew I wanted my father. The next few days blurred together. Calls, visitors, food left on our doorstep by neighbors we barely knew. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, holding the tie he always wore to work on Fridays. Dark blue, with tiny white squares. It smelled faintly like his aftershave. At the funeral, my mother kept her hand on my shoulder the whole time. The casket was closed. Someone told me that was normal after a bad accident. I wanted to scream at them, tell them to open it, to prove he was really in there. I didn't scream. 9-year-old boys aren't supposed to scream at funerals. My uncle came down from another city. He handled most of the practical things. I just remember signing a lot of cards and hugging a lot of people who knew my father better as a coworker than I ever had the chance to as a man. At the cemetery, my mother broke down again when they lowered the casket. I remember grabbing her hand, even though mine was shaking. I remember thinking, I'm the man of the house now. It's funny, looking back on that thought. I was a child, but that sentence settled into my bones and never really left. After the funeral, life didn't go back to normal. It just shifted. Our house felt too big. Dinner was too quiet. There was always an empty space at the table, no matter where we sat. My mother went back to work after a while. She never remarried. She never really talked about my father's death. If I asked questions, she would answer them in short, tight sentences and then change the subject. All the details I knew came from that one night. Car accident, drunk driver, instant, didn't suffer. I never saw a body. I never saw a medical report. I never saw the inside of that hospital. Everything I believed about what happened came through other people's words. I thought about all of this as I stood there in my living room, one hand on the curtain, a stranger's voice in my ear. If what she was saying was true, then the worst night of my life was built on a lie. "Daniel?" Claire's voice pulled me back. "Are you still there?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm here." I pulled the curtain back a few inches. Outside, the parking lot sat under 2 weak streetlights. Most of the cars were familiar. My neighbor's red hatchback, the old truck that always took up 2 spaces, and a silver sedan. The engine wasn't running, but the faint glow of a dashboard screen lit the interior. I could just make out the silhouette of someone in the driver's seat, holding a phone to their ear. "I see you," I said. "Good," she replied. "I know how this sounds. I know how crazy it is. That's why I came in person." My mouth felt dry. "You have files?" I asked. "I kept copies of some things from that night," she said. "Notes, forms, and something else. I'll show you if you let me come up, or you can come down here. Whatever makes you feel safer." I let the curtain fall back into place. Every instinct I had was split. One part of me wanted to hang up, lock the door, and pretend this call had never happened. Go to bed, wake up, blame it on a nightmare and cold pizza. The other part of me, the part that still kept my father's old watch in a drawer I rarely opened, leaned toward the door. If there was even a 1% chance she was telling the truth, Could I really walk away from it? Give me a second, I said. I set the phone on speaker and placed it on the coffee table so I could put on shoes. My hands moved on autopilot. Socks, sneakers, keys. Are you coming down? She asked. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I'm not hanging up. I slipped on a jacket and stood by the door. My heart was still racing, but there was a strange clarity under the fear now, like the feeling before jumping into cold water. I need to ask you something first, I said. Okay, when you saw him last week? I asked. Did he know who he was? Her silence lasted just a beat too long. Yes, she said. He knew exactly who he was. He just didn't want anyone else to know. That answer settled over me like a weight. I looked at the door handle, at the deadbolt, at the chain. Then I took a breath, slid the chain back, and unlocked the door. I'm coming down, I said. All right, she replied. I'll wait here. I ended the call but kept the phone in my hand. The hallway outside my apartment was quiet, the kind of dead silence that makes every footstep echo. As I walked toward the stairs, one thought kept repeating in my head, steady and relentless. If she's lying, I'll go back upstairs and forget I ever met her. If she's telling the truth, then my father died twice, and I'd only mourned him once. The stairwell smelled faintly like dust and old paint. Every footstep echoed. I counted them without meaning to. 1 flight, 2. By the time I reached the lobby, my hands were sweating. I wiped them on my jacket and pushed the door open. The night air hit me like cold water. The lot was almost empty. Streetlights cast long, thin shadows across the asphalt. The silver sedan was parked under the far light. Headlights off, dashboard glowing. Whoever was inside didn't move as I walked closer. I stopped a few feet from the driver's side and tapped the window with my knuckle. The woman inside jumped slightly, then rolled the window down halfway. Daniel? She asked. I nodded. She looked older than I'd expected. Late 40s, maybe early 50s. Hair pulled back. Tired eyes. Not the kind of tired you get from one bad night of sleep. The kind that settles into a person over years. I'm Claire, she said. Up close, her voice sounded the same as on the phone, soft but controlled. On the passenger seat, I saw a worn manila folder. The edges were frayed. Paper corners stuck out, bent and yellowing. Can I get in? I asked. She hesitated, then unlocked the doors. I walked around and slid into the passenger seat. The car smelled faintly of coffee and some kind of floral air freshener. For a moment, we just sat there, two strangers in a quiet parking lot at midnight, sharing the same fear. She rested her hand on the folder. These are copies, she said. I kept them hidden for 22 years. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't throw them away. My eyes were fixed on that folder. What's in there? I asked. She drew in a slow breath, then opened it. Everything they wrote down the night your father died, she said. And one thing they didn't mean for anyone to see. She lifted the first paper. Emergency intake form, she said. I filled this out myself. Name, age, date, time of arrival. Standard stuff. She handed it to me. There it was, in faded ink. Patient, Michael Wright. Age, 38. Date. The same date burned into my memory. My hands tightened around the page. Keep going, she said gently. The next sheet had a hospital logo at the top. Vital signs. Notes in quick, messy handwriting. Severe trauma, she murmured, reading over my shoulder. Head injury, chest contusion, multiple fractures. But look here. She pointed to a line near the bottom. Status. Stable. Intubated. Stable? I repeated. She nodded. Not good. Not out of danger. But alive. This was stamped 40 minutes before they told your mother he was gone. My throat felt tight. I turned to the next page. This one was different. Shorter. Colder. Transfer authorization. Half the lines were blank. No destination hospital. No receiving doctor's name. Just a time. A signature from someone in administration. And a note at the bottom. To be moved off-site for further care. There's no off-site facility in our system, she said. This isn't how transfers are documented. There's always a destination, a contact, a reason. Who signed this? I asked. She tapped the scribbled name. I never saw that person again after that night, she said. Not in the hospital, not anywhere. The last sheet wasn't a form. It was a photocopy of something handwritten. What's this? A note, she said. Someone left it on his chart. It wasn't meant for us. I read the single line. Subject cleared. Move under alias, M. Lane. My heart stumbled. Alias, I whispered. You're saying they gave my father a fake name? She closed the folder slowly. I'm saying, she replied, that everything official says he died that night. And everything in here says he didn't. I stared at the word alias until the letters blurred. For 22 years, my father had been a set of facts in my mind. Dead. Car accident. Gone. Now he was a question mark with someone else's name. When did you realize something was wrong? I asked. Not that night, she said. Back then I was just following orders. Take the patient here. Sign this. Don't ask why there are two men in suits waiting in a restricted hallway. She looked out through the windshield for a moment, as if she could still see that hallway. It bothered me. She went on. But I was young. I needed the job. I tried to forget it. Then I was moved to another department. Then out of the hospital. After that visit to my apartment, I understood. You were being silenced, I said. She nodded once. Not just me. The doctor on call that night changed hospitals shortly after. The nurse who helped me move your father quit. She wouldn't talk about it. I let that sink in. So what happened last Tuesday? I asked. You said he walked into your clinic. Something softened in her face. A kind of sad awe. I was at the front desk, filling in, she said. The clinic was almost closed. The door opened. I looked up, and there he was. She glanced at me. He looked older, of course, she said. Gray in his hair. Lines on his face. But it was him. He gave the name Matthew Lane. And when I checked his chart later, my stomach dropped. Why? Same blood type. Same old fracture in the right wrist from a break years ago. Same scar on the chin. Left-handed. He even hesitated for a second when I asked for his date of birth, like he was editing it in his head. I swallowed. Did he recognize you? I don't think so, she said. But when I handed him the forms, his hand shook. Like holding a pen brought back something he'd been trying not to remember. She turned back to me. I had a choice, she said. Pretend I'd seen a ghost, or go back to the file I never threw away. She tapped the folder between us. That's why I'm here, she added quietly. Because if he came back into my life after all these years, I think it's time he comes back into yours. For a while, neither of us spoke. The folder sat between us like a live wire. Part of me wanted to shove it away. Part of me wanted to tear it open and never look away again. Does he know you kept this? I asked finally. No, she said. He thinks that night is buried with the rest of his past. If he even lets himself remember it. I leaned back against the seat. My heart was still racing, but my thoughts were getting clearer. Questions lined up in my head like cars at a red light. Where is he now? I asked. She reached into the side pocket of the folder and pulled out a small printout. An appointment confirmation. He listed this address on his intake form, she said. Not far from here. The clinic is a general practice. They see a lot of older patients. He didn't say much. Just that he'd been having trouble sleeping. Chronic pain. Nightmares. She handed me the paper. The name Matthew Lane was printed at the top. Under it, an address I recognized. It was 10 minutes away by car. "I know this street," I murmured. "You don't have to do anything with this," Claire said. "You can burn it. You can throw it away. You can walk back upstairs, go to work tomorrow, and pretend I never called." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were searching mine. "But," I asked. "But if everything in here is true," she said, tapping the folder, "then someone decided your father's life and your grief were theirs to control. And that's not right." I looked back down at the address. For years, my father had been a story with a final line. He died. Now, someone had scratched that out and left the sentence open. "What would you do?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "I did what I could," she said. "I called you." I folded the printout carefully and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The paper felt heavier than it should. "I don't know what I'm going to do yet," I admitted. "But I know I can't unknow this." She nodded. "Whatever you decide," she said. "At least now you're deciding with the truth." I walked back to my apartment in a daze. The hallway felt different, even though nothing had changed. Same peeling paint, same buzzing light, same old carpet. Inside, the living room was just as I'd left it. TV off, lamp on, coffee cold. Only one thing was new: the folded paper in my pocket. I took it out and set it on the table next to the folder. My father's old world and his new one, lying side by side. For years, I had told myself one simple story. He left for work. There was an accident. He died. It hurt, but it was clean. There was a beginning and an end. Now there were gaps everywhere. People in suits. Fake names. A transfer to nowhere. A man with my father's face walking into a clinic under an alias. I thought about my mother. About the way she never remarried. The way she still kept his photo on the mantel. The way she always went quiet when I asked about that night. Had she suspected anything? Had someone lied to her too? I didn't know. What I did know was this: whether I went to that address or not, whether I ever looked him in the eye again or not, my life had already changed. My father wasn't just a memory anymore. He was a secret someone had tried very hard to bury. I picked up the paper and stared at the address one more time. Maybe I would go tomorrow. Maybe next week. Maybe I'd stand across the street and watch first. Or maybe I'd never knock on that door. But now, for the first time in 22 years, my grief wasn't just about losing him. It was also about what had been taken from us. The truth, the choice, the chance to say goodbye. I turned off the lamp and let the room go dark. Whatever happened next, I thought, it wouldn't be built on lies anymore. And somehow, that felt like the real beginning of the story.